garbage. And to some of you guys that have been bittered and, the 2 and 3 divorcers, it's probably pretty much the same thing, right? No, we're talking about trash and solid waste. And here with us today is Jeff Langbehn of the Lake County Solid Waste Management District. How you doing, Jeff? Turn your mic on, will you? You got deload. How's that feel?
Better?
You never know. That might be a
harbinger. Is that the love? I'm not feeling the love
plan.
this
What
morning,
happened
man.
on February 2nd?
Earl came before the board to give them an update as to where his financing, because it has been extraordinarily frustrating. We talked to Powers 2 or 3 times a week over the last 2.5 years saying, Earl, show us the money. Where are we at on things? And in fairness to Powers, he would tell us whichever particular financing program he was working with, this is what the status is, this is what's going on, and of course then that would be reported back to the board. And the frustration is intense on our point, because you're right. I think everybody believes in the concept. It's a wonderful idea if you take it purely on its face. $17 a ton, cheaper by 2/3 of anything else that we've got. We're not putting it into a landfill. It's being turned into, the recycling rate is in excess of 90%, and we're turning it into a fuel. And it's being done in other parts of the country. Why isn't it happening here, Earl? Well, again, in fairness, we've probably been through one of the toughest economic times, I think, that I know in my lifetime and in many people's time, so I can understand a portion of that. But the reality of it is that these people that Powers says that he is using have not been fruitful, for lack of a better term, at this point in time. So on the meeting on February 2nd, he came before the board to say, this is my new guy. And he was presenting Raymond James, which is a very credible national finance company, that they now want to do it. And to say the meeting got off the tracks is an understatement.
Now, just before we go to the phone calls, evidently Powers made a presentation, and then there was going to be some discussion, and he was going to come back. Instead, they got in their cars and left.
Yeah, that's the part that was so disappointing. I think the board members had every right to ask the really tough questions, and they were. And I think they were doing a good job of it. And there seemed to be a certain amount of dialogue that was starting to take place. At one time, one of the board members asked Mr. Powers, well, Mr. Powers, if we give you whatever the time frame was.
You wanted to know, what, 90 days or something like
that? Yeah, 90, 150, whatever the arbitrary number was, could you get it done in that time? And Mr. Powers responded, that's a deal. And the next thing we know, there was continued discussion going on, and Mr. Powers and his entire group were there, his construction group, and asked for a few moments to talk about it. And they walked out in the hall. And the next thing we know, the board's waiting for Mr. Powers and his group to come back in. And one of the members of Mr. Powers' team gets up and said, Mr. Powers has gone back to Evansville.
219-845-1100. Dave from Highland, you're online with Jeff Langbehn.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Dave. How are you?
Jeff, I just listening to JOB and the papers, and this has become so politicized, and I know that's a big surprise to you coming, in a campaign year, and a lot of politicians are making comments about solid waste, and as far as I'm concerned, it's nothing but trash talk, and that definitely is a pun intended. And obviously they're doing it, to tell the people what they want to hear. It is disturbing, and this has been going on for a long time. Can you tell me? Yeah. It seems like we're always up in the air, and I'd like to know why we're concentrating on power so much, and the board is not going outside and trying to find, another revenue stream.
Dave, I think that's a great question, and I can tell you. When Powers was awarded the contract in November of 2008, he was given a contract. And
it wasn't open-ended, was it?
No. And what that contract says is, Earl, make your deal happen. Well, because it took him about a year, part of the terms of the contract is he couldn't go to a municipality that didn't receive him with open arms. So it took almost a year to do various presentations to different municipalities. They had to find a suitable location because he needed about 100 acres. And it wasn't until, I think, a little longer than a year that he actually ended up with a community in Schneider that said, hey, we really want you. So that explains a portion of it, but you would think that the financing, it didn't have to be independent of that. But the reality of it is, and then, and I can only report to you what we were reported by Powers, is there was this financing that would fall apart, and then that financing that would fall apart. And the reality of it is that it's just the board has now given Powers a 60-day notice that he is in breach of the contract. And we still have a contract with him, and so we have to wait until that 60 days elapses, or before then, and he can come and say, here's how I'm going to satisfy this breach or not satisfy it. And then and only then can the board make a decision as to whether or not they'll terminate the relationship with Powers or go forward with the relationship with Powers, because they're bound by the terms of the contract.
I mean, I understand the last 3 years for anyone has been an extreme challenge to build revenue. It's just been a difficult time for, I don't care if you're building a garage or building a 30-story building.
Sure.
Getting financing was extremely tough. And we all looked at the river that took 30 years to dig. Now, why didn't you, the board, now this is take it for what it's worth, why didn't you just say, in the conception of this, Mr. Powers, you have 365 days to make it happen. If not, we're going in another direction. Now it's been drug out over 3 years, and I truly think the people of Lake County are just tired of seeing projects just drug out to no avail.
All right, thanks a lot.
Dave, I couldn't agree with you more. Believe me, there's nobody more frustrated than me. The reality of it is that the board didn't choose to put a limitation on the contract early on, and that's how come we're faced with this 3-year dilemma that we're faced with, where we're at right now.